Guys, welcome back to the channel. This is Coding Paths, and we're back with another Java HackerRank coding challenge. They have a series of challenges called 30 Days of Code. I am now on day 12, and in this case, I've actually already finished it. It took me a couple of days to kind of really dig into it. The subject deals with inheritance, so let's kind of read through it. The subject, again, is inheritance. I just said that. I don't know why I repeat myself sometimes. Inheritance is one of those really core concepts you have to understand when it comes to object-oriented programming. And it really comes down to exactly what it sounds like, inheritance, inheriting. If you've got a parent and a child, and the parent passes on their stuff to the child, the same thing can happen in an object-oriented programming language. I'm doing Java, that's what I'm paid to do at work, so that's what I do in my spare time as well, just kind of bolster my skills. So we're dealing with Java is called a superclass. And superclass may be whatever car, and it can pass down its attributes, its methods, its properties down to a subclass, which could be Maserati or whatever like that. So you have a superclass and a subclass. Superclass passes its properties on to the subclass. That's what inheritance is. And so on today's challenge, today's problem, it says we're delving into inheritance. Check out the attached tutorial, blah, 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 blah. And so the problem says we have two classes. We have a person and a student, right? See it right there, a person and a student. The person is the base class, student is the derived class. So person would be the parent, student is like the child, okay? Completed code for person and a declaration for student are already provided, cool. Observe that student inherits, just like we said, all the properties of person. So whatever's true about person, we're going to have that inherited by student. Okay, what we have to do in this challenge is complete the student class by writing the following things: a student class constructor with 4 parameters. Constructor is how we initialize values and properties within the class. Okay, we have to do a method called calculate, and it is of the type car character. That is going to calculate the student's object's average and return grade character representative of the average. So just looking at it, it looks like 3 things are happening here. We have to finish the student class, and it's going to have parameters. They gave us the parameters right there. It's straightforward. We have to have a method. That method is going to calculate an average, and then it's going to spit out a grade character. So like, regular school, if it was 90 to 100, it would spit out an A, or 80 to 89, it would spit out a B, whatever like that. So let's keep going down, and actually they have a funny little grading system here. I think this might come from Harry Potter, I'm not sure. The letters are O, E, A, P, D, N, T. I know T stands for troll, I'm not sure about the other ones. O is probably outstanding or something. But anyway, these are the grade letters and the grades that they go with. So that's the scale we're going to use. And tell us about the input format. I'm not going to drag you guys to that. Let's just go ahead and get to the code. So again, we need to make a student class constructor, 4 parameters: first name, last name, ID, and scores. And we need to make a method called calculate. It's of the type character car. It's going to calculate the average, spit out or return a grade character that corresponds with it. So here we go. It's going down, going down. They gave us the sample input, so the sample input would be like first name, last name, the ID right there, the number of scores, and then an array of actual scores. In the output, they wanted to see the name, the ID, and then that letter grade. So this person got a 90, so that would be an O, okay? Which is right there. That's an O. All right, so here we go. So this is the part that they gave us already. This is all the code that they gave us. The import statement, class person with those 3 protected properties. Okay. They made a constructor, so they did some initializing with first name, last name, ID. Okay. We can go on down. This is all what they provided for us. They have a method called print person that's going to give us those first 2 lines. And then here's our part. So we have class student extends person. That is the basic syntax to extend the properties from a superclass to a subclass. Class student, or whatever class, whatever, extends the parent class. So class student extends person. They went ahead and gave us this little private int array test scores. So the part we have to do is right here. And so this is the syntax. Public student And then we put these parameters right here because it's going to be a parameterized constructor. It's a constructor that takes in arguments. You're going to pass arguments to that constructor. How do we know that? Well, A, that's what they asked us to do. That's the main thing. They told us to do it that way. But if you think about it, you would want to pass these in to the class in order to be able to calculate the scores and then the grade at the end. And we also need these passed in order to be able to reproduce them to return them later in the output. So we have a parameterized constructor right here. Okay. The next thing we do is this funny little syntax here: super, first name, last name, ID. Why do we do that? That is how you refer to your superclass. You don't have to actually put student right here. You simply put super, regardless of what the name of it is. You put super, and we can actually pass in all these arguments to match up with what we saw up here: 1, 2, and 3. Okay. So you see I put super, first name, last name, ID, but then we have test scores. We need to tie that in somehow. So in this case, the test scores that you have in that class, that's going to equal the scores array that we see in the parameter of this class, public student. And that ends that whole part. That's like the main thing for that first section. Now the next thing is really just calculating average. Hopefully you guys are comfortable with that. Tons of ways you could have done this. I think mine might be a little bit verbose. In fact, I know it's a little bit verbose. I was just all over the place, not really trying to tag my way to a solution. I made a list of all the letters for the grades, and so with that string I can access it, which I did down here based on the average you get. I assigned some initial variables, so I've said grade is going to, I initialize the grade to equal that one. The grade sum, just like if you have 100 and a 90 and an 80, then the grade sum would be the 100 plus the 90 plus the 80, 270. So I just initialize that grade sum to be 0 and the average to be 34. I didn't have to do that, I'm just messing around. And here we go. This is our iteration. So for each score in the array test scores, okay, that's my for loop, add each individual score to grade sum, which starts off at 0. So it's going to loop through, iterate through each one of the grades and add it to grade sum. That's my sum of my grades. And of course, all I'm going to do is divide the sum of the grades by the number of the grades. Now, I could have divided it by that ID, not the ID, but this ID right here. Let me show you. Not that, but this. I could have divided it by that. But instead, I'm just going to go ahead and do a little linked method. So I divided my grade sum by test scores.length. Same difference. So in case I didn't have that available for me, it doesn't matter. I can just compute it by the number of elements in the array. And then I did my if statement. Even looking at this right now, this is totally a switch statement, but whatever. I did a bunch of ifs just to get to a quick solution. So if the average is greater than or equal to 90 and it's less than or equal to 100, then the grade is now going to be the first one in my little grade list. This right here is going to be O, and then et cetera, else if it's between 80 and 90, it'll be the second one, position 1, which will be the E. See that right there? And so on and so on, from 70 to 80, 55 to 70, 40 to 55, etc. That's what it's going to be. And then we simply return the grade. And we run the code. Of course, it should work. Bingo. And then we submit the code. And we've already done this, so it shouldn't error out now. Congratulations, we're good to go. So this has been Java with inheritance and object-oriented programming and HackerRank and Coding Pass.